Hello guys, you're watching College Infotech, and now today we'll be discussing the topic of Git and GitHub. So now everybody wants the resume to be good, right? If you want to get placed in a good MNCs, you want your resume to be the best. You want it so that your resume stands out the most among the others. That's why we're learning this, because we want to get a good job and a good salary. So in the resume, the company selects only those personnel who are up to date with the recent technologies, right? So the recent technologies that we are dealing with is this GitHub and Git. If you have these in your resume, then definitely your resume is going to stand out the most, and you will definitely be selected if you have these skills of Git and GitHub in your resume. Because mostly all of the companies that are opening, or most startups and the previous companies such as Microsoft and Google and all other big companies use Git and GitHub to develop projects and deploy them and bring them into effect. That's why we're learning this Git and GitHub, and that's why you're watching too, right? Let's move on to what Git is and what GitHub is, right? So first problem that any person while starting anything new should understand is, why should we learn this and what is the purpose of this technology, right? So first is, why should we learn this? Simple. Git and GitHub solves a problem. That's why it came into effect. Git and GitHub solves a problem. The problem that is that, suppose there's a team of web development, okay? This is the front end team, and back end. So the front end team and the back end team totally collaborate in a project and report back to John. John is the manager, and he then report back to his senior and the client and forwards the project. So when John gets a project, he tells the front end team how the interface should be designed and how the website should look like in the client side, and what and all functionalities should have it. He tells the backend team. So but when they start developing the project, they all have to work simultaneously on a single project, right? Now assume that before Git and GitHub came into existence, how the workflow would have occurred. Steve tells Ella that she should make the header or the nav bar. Bob should make the body, and Lee should make the footer of a single page, and like that they should develop multiple pages. Similarly, Rohan, the lead of the backend, tells their members what and all functionalities they should have in their project and how they should deploy. So now whatever changes a single person makes in the file, suppose in the front end file, Emma made a changes in the h1 tag, like in the heading tag she made a changes. Okay, so she updated the code. Now the code is updated, then Steve should also get an update. Yeah, the code is updated, and these and all the changes that are occurred. Now how will Emma send the updated code to Steve? She should have to send the entire file, right? And she should also mention the line number of the file in which the change occurred, so that Steve can understand it better. Now if for such small changes also she has to tell Steve and that I have made changes in this line and had to send the whole file again, then the management of the file would be very difficult, right? And same goes for the backend team. So to overcome this problem, the concept of Git and GitHub was introduced. It came into effect in 2005. It was developed by Linus Torvalds. Okay, I'll explain about him in next video, like the coming in the coming video. I'll be explaining about this. Okay, about Linus and how he developed Git and Git. So that's what the problem was, and how Git and GitHub solved it we'll be learning shortly. So now moving on to the next slide. Now what is Git exactly? I told you what the problem was and what the solution was, but you don't know exactly that what is Git and how it came into existence and how it is a solution for that problem, right? So Git is basically a version control system. That means whatever changes, amendments, updates, deletions of code that you do from the starting phase to the ending of the project, it manages and stores every detail part. Okay, so suppose like you're making a web development file and you have an HTML template. Okay, so from starting from this code, just a blank HTML tag, till a full complex file, everything will be stored till the end. That's what a version control system means. Like your photo album, that means when you were a kid, you have photos from that time also, and when you are till this age, you have photos till that time also, right? So what and all manages that? This phone storage or the photo albums manages and stores your collection of photos. That's what Git does basically. Okay, going on forward. Yeah, the developer of Git is Linus Torvalds. He's the same guy who developed Linux. Okay, and as you can probably guess by the name, Linux and Linus, they are probably same, because Linus named Linux after his name itself. This is the guy. See, cheeky bastard. Okay, now advantages of Git. Git directory. See, Git directory is the directory that manages that changes tracks in your codes, every update that you do in your code, everything that occurs in your code is managed by this Git directory. It looks like this, and it is a hidden folder. It's a hidden folder. I'll show you when we do the setup of Git. Okay, let me erase this. Yeah, moving on to the next advantage, non-linear workflow. Now this is very important. Remember that non-linear workflow is the major advantage, and it is the major reason why we are using Git. See, wait 2 seconds, I'll just erase this. See, you can hear you can see this is the linear workflow and this is the non-linear workflow. Ignore this history part, I wrote it wrong. So as you can see in the linear workflow, that while moving from one step to another, you cannot skip any steps. You have to go through this series of steps, then only you can reach the next step, right? You cannot do multiple works at the same time. You have to do it step by step, one step after another, one step after another. That means the workflow is, the time taken to complete one work is more. But in the non-linear workflow, you can see that if we give one starting step here and this step can directly be linked using these series of steps. Okay, so that's what basically non-linear workflow means. That means you can work simultaneously on a file. Multiple person can work and develop the file using the non-linear workflow. As you can see, we can go from one step to this step. Like one person can develop, suppose this is a navbar, so one person can develop the navbar easily, while the other person is developing the body, and this person is again developing the footer, and then this person is developing the backend from the second step, and going on like this. Multiple person can branch out their roles, work on them simultaneously, merge them through pull requests. There's something called pull request in Git, okay, which we'll be learning in the shortly. Okay, so they can work on the same code simultaneously, merge them, and then create the final project. This is much more faster, right, than the other one in which or one person has to go from, like, one person has to develop the first client side, then he has to complete this client side project, go to the backend, then complete it. Rather than this model, non-linear workflow model is the better model. Okay, independent of network access. See, I'll tell you one thing. Whatever changes you make in your file, whether your computer is connected to internet or not, the changes will be stored in and shown in the Git directory. And whenever you open this file or upload it in the GitHub, you can see the changes that are made. So it is independent of whether your computer is connected to the network or not, or the internet. 2 seconds, I'll just erase this. Yeah. So we learned about Git. Now we have to learn about what is GitHub. Now Git is a version control system. It tracks changes in your code. Now you need a place to store your code also, right? Like, where will the code be stored? Suppose you changed your file here, and you want the team leader to access that file, the changes in that file. Now how can he access the file? It comes to the same problem again, that they have to share the whole file, and then he has to see what and all changes were made. So instead of this, there's a place on the internet called GitHub. It was developed by Microsoft. Okay, GitHub, and they are currently hosting and managing the GitHub platform. Everyone can contribute to GitHub using their files, and most of the open source projects, that means they can take contributions from everyone around the world. Even you can contribute to an open source projects. So mostly all open source projects, and all the code that you want for your company or any development project that you're working on is hosted on GitHub, on the internet, where you can access it from any device. Even on your mobile phone you can access your code from the GitHub, though you can't modify it mostly. So that's all for Git and GitHub, guys, and we'll be learning about the terminologies, the basic terms that will be used in Git and GitHub, and how the setup will be done. That will be learning in the next video. Thank you.